Hello, New Stoics. This is Tim, and I want to touch on a topical thing that's been going on Twitter based upon two videos. One was by Rationality Rules, and the other was a response to that video by EssenceOfThought. And I'll link both of those videos down below, but in general, it's just referring to transgender people in sports. I just want to touch on how rare transgender people in sport, or just in general, is. It's not a very common thing. And most of the time, whenever it's brought up, it's never brought up in a positive way. And more or less, it's brought up in a way that highlights the binary way of thinking that somewhat tries to eliminate the experiences of trans people. So a transgender man trying to make it in basketball and doing so, let's just say they're not very successful. They're having trouble keeping up, and maybe they're just second string and they don't do very well. Nobody's really going to say that that person has an unfair advantage. Because, even after hormone therapy and all these other things, most people will say that person does not have an unfair advantage because they were born a woman. So the question I'm having is that necessarily true? Is there situations where somebody who's trans takes testosterone and starts to have an advantage in one way or the other? Are people going to start speaking out against that? They say the person's roiding, or the person has an advantage over a biological male. And my question is, if that does pop up and people do say there's an unfair advantage, then we really have to look at who is saying it and why. Because everybody is speaking about fairness, that it isn't fair for women, biological women, sports. And here's the biggest problem that I have with this. Somebody who transitions, they take HRT and they've had surgeries to give a more feminine experience. They already lose muscle mass, and they already lose any advantage that they would normally have if they were a biological male when they transition. And so a lot of people will say that it's still at the root a man. Well, no. So after the transition and after the person takes a more feminine appearance, we all have to accept that that is not just a feminine looking man, but that is a woman. And as long as we say that the person has undergone the necessary surgeries so that they can compete at women's sports, and we understand those rules to be fair, we can't really restrict them from competing in women's sports. They are a woman. It's like someone getting upset about Serena and Venus Williams competing in tennis because they have a higher muscle mass than other female tennis players. It's just not really relevant. There's going to be major differences even within the genders. There's going to be players that are going to be better than others. And I will tell you that even though some transgender athletes have found success, quite a few haven't. Quite a few don't do very well. Even the ones that are pointed out as having success have lost. So I think it's better to just kind of take a step back and let's evaluate where these voices are coming from. There is a growing segment of people who just do not want trans people to live normal lives. And to be so lucky to be able to compete in sport is a difficult thing for even somebody born into the gender. I can't just go up there and play basketball, and I'm not deluded enough to think that if I changed genders, I would be a pro female basketball player, because I am telling you, I'd get dunked on. So we need to come to terms with this and just accept, as long as the rules are fair, that transgender athletes are going to compete with their genders. So let's all just be fair and just think about this with a clear mind and not be afraid, because women's sports are not going away. Biological females have nothing to worry about. I'm sorry, this video isn't really about Stoicism, but I feel like it needs to be talked about. The video next week will get into more Stoic topics, but I also will talk about topical discussions at times. But I hope everybody's having a great day, and make sure and like and subscribe and tell your friends about the new Stoics. Thank you.